I am Ted Nelson with a few minutes to spare on the 3rd of April, 2019. I thought I'd talk about two of my friends and their two systems of planning. Three systems of planning. Three of my friends. Four. Anyway, it started when I was at the IEEE, I think, meeting exhibits at in New York City. And I met a guy who was sitting at a table with an interesting object. And this may be the last one that exists. And I said, "What's that?" And he said, "Oh, it's an analog computer for planning." I said, "Really?" "Yes. It does PERT." Now, what is PERT? PERT, or Program Evaluation and Review Technique, is a way of planning that shows you what things have to be done before what other things. And a very simple-minded example is giving a dinner party. Okay? So here we have a PERT chart of what has to come before what. So if somebody has to, first you invite the guests, and then you expect certain of them, and later you set up the table. The guests arrive and you seat the guests. Meanwhile, over here in another entirely different branch, which could be happening at a different time, you cook the meal, and then when the guests are seated, you serve them. Okay, there's a very simple-minded example. Now, that is essential for planning because you have to know what comes before what. You can't just start doing stuff. Well, Stanley showed me this thing and how it worked on the Planalog. Now, here is perhaps the last existing Planalog in the world. And he had these little blocks, and using Dymo tape, lettering tape, you put on here the name of the object and little cards. I don't have those anymore. Little cards, combs that fit across, and then these blocks would push each other. And so then the same PERT chart, the same PERT chart seen in the Planalog fashion looked like this. So, invite and expect and set up all come before seat guests, and cook and seat guests come before serve. And that could all be set up with Planalog blocks and combs. And I thought that was very clever. And he wasted a lot of time explaining it to me. It was not a business success because, I don't know. Anyway, so a few years later, I met a kid who was, I think, 12 at the time. Very bright. His name was, the name of the guy who invented it was Stanley Mendell. So here was a kid who was 12, and he was associated or visited the resistors at one time, and he was 12, I believe. And his name was Harry Mendell, and I asked what his father did. And he says, "Oh, my father makes an analog computer for planning." I said, "You mean the Planalog?" He said, "You've heard of it?" And I said, "Yes, I have one." And Harry and I went on to do a number of things. Harry then has had a great success in various lines of business. He had a what do you call it? Anyway, big Wall Street things. He understands everything. I lent him my computer once, and he enjoyed calling himself on the phone after a multi-round trip delay to the satellite. Anyhow, so that was Harry Mendell. Now, I had another friend, John Mauchly. I talked to John Mauchly the night before he died. He was a wonderful man. He could not stick to the subject. I was going to try to write an autobiography for him, and I recorded many hours with him, but he couldn't stick to the subject. I wondered how in the world had he built the ENIAC computer, until I went to the memorial service, and then I knew. Because at the memorial service, there were all these 60-year-old kids who had worked for him in the 1940s under top secrecy during World War II, when he built the ENIAC computer under top secrecy. And he hadn't done the job. He hadn't done it. They'd done it, but under his inspiration and with his understanding. He was so mad because von Neumann had come, and they said, "Well, von Neumann is under security clearance. You can tell him anything." So they Mauchly told von Neumann that they eventually planned to have a single memory for both programs and data. And then von Neumann published that, and it got to be called the von Neumann machine. And Mauchly was angry about that till the day he died. But anyway, Mauchly, after he created the ENIAC, then he and his collaborator set up the UNIVAC Corporation for Sperry Rand in competition with IBM, and I think they were ahead of IBM in terms of computers for a time. Because of security issues, Mauchly actually wrote the program that did the first election predicting correctly, but he had to do it at home because he wasn't allowed into his own company because of security issues at the moment. It was insane. So Mauchly told me then he went into business and created a planning computer. And he put everything into it. All kinds of mathematics, all kinds of predictive geometry. And he was so angry because then the investors said, well, what about this Planalog? And Mauchly steamed because, of course, the Planalog was an eensy bit of what he had done. And that just goes to show you how complicated the world is, how neither product succeeded. But investors, of course, can't see the differences between anything and anything else. And there you have the story of two of my friends with opposing systems of planning, neither of which took off, but they're great people. Thank you.